Good morning, everybody. We'll call the public presentation committee meeting to order. We'll be conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers is open to the public while continuing to use current telecommuting processes. We do have one public presentation appointment scheduled for 10 a.m. and I would like to welcome representatives from the Strathmore Handy Bus. If you would please just come to our microphone if you could introduce yourselves, please. Good morning.
Reeve Link. Would you consider just approval?
Oh, and sorry, we'll just approve our agenda first. My apologies. If we could have a motion to approve the agenda.
Also move.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or discussion on the agenda? And we will use our electronic voting system to vote on the agenda.
I lost it. You're going to have to bear with me.
Take your time.
Oh, there we go. Are we set?
Just give us
Oh, yep.
30 seconds. We've implemented a new electronic voting system and we're still just getting all the wrinkles out.
Yay. Apologies.
Motion is carried. Now we're ready. Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm not sure how you want to proceed, but what I thought is we would just, because not all the councillors know everyone that's presenting here, we just do a short introduction and then carry on with the presentation, if that's acceptable.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
So I'm Mark Gibault, originally from Clooney, now reside just northwest of town. And I think Glenn and I sat on the Wheatland Housing Management Body for more than a decade here a few years ago. My father used a handy bus extensively, and short history with me and how I got to this position was I was approached by some concerned citizens when the handy bus was having some struggles, and I was elected the chair at the AGM in 2021, and we proceeded to carry on with the operations, and it's been extremely successful so far. And I'd like to have Brian Greer, who we brought on as for his financial background.
Yeah, I'm as Mark said, Brian Greer. I came to the Handy Bus again in 2021 along with Mark. I previously served as a member of the Strathmore Handy Bus Association board from 2011 to 2017 as a representative of the Strathmore Lions Club. I have a background in small business. I served 24 years with, served 24 years with CIBC in a management position, including audit, mostly in small business. So I understand small business in a very detailed way. The Handy Bus Association is in good hands right now, in my opinion. We are financially solid, and I'll just let our vice chair tell you a little bit about herself.
Okay, thanks. So some of you know me, I'm Christy Shorak, and I do live in the county in Scott's area. This is actually my second year of being on the Handy Bus Association board. And when I thought about what I wanted to do outside of my current employment, I chose the Handy Bus because I know what the value is of this service and how it means so much to the residents of both Strathmore as well as the Wheatland County who needs the transportation options. So my goal basically as being on this board is to ensure that these residents will be able to be well represented, as well as it's an important service that we want to ensure remains one that they can count on for many years to come. So this last year of being on the board, as I say, I'm just entering my second year, has been a time of learning. I assisted in rewriting our association bylaws with the rest of our board, as well as we're working very hard in forming that a board that can work together, plan together, govern, and support our handy bus staff to ensure the services that we offer to our residents meet their needs in every way. So I'm just going to go on with my bit of presentation, and then Mark will and Brian will follow. So transportation for residents who reside within a rural area, as you know, can be very limited as well as very expensive if that service is available at all to them. The handy bus might be the only service that can offer these residents a means of transportation. Mark and Brian are here on behalf of our association to ask this council for your continued financial supports in assisting us to continue to offer this service that is both reliable and safe to the communities within the county. To date, I just did a little bit of research with Vicky, our manager of the handy bus, and I found out that we have just serviced so far over 300 trips for county residents alone, and that's increased about a third, I understand, from last year at this time. So the need is definitely there. Primarily, these residents live in Rockyford area as well as in Gleason. But looking at the actual data that I was given, we found that a lot of these residents really live on rural farms. And so that's our third highest users within the county. So long-term handy bus users within this county use our services primarily for medical trips, but we have found that we have more and more signing on for daily trips to Calgary for cancer treatment. So there's a new client going to be using the service from the Rockyford area, and that person will travel every day for 7 weeks. And we do dialysis for a few areas as well east of here, so it is a high need for this service. For some of the residents, such as those with disabilities, or for those who no longer drive or choose not to drive within the city, the handy bus is one of these only ways that the residents can get the medical care they require due to their limited mobilities, as well as some of them may use a walker or wheelchair, and that doesn't work well for a vehicle that's a typical vehicle. So those are the reasons that when I talked to a few of them why they chose to use the handy bus, that's what they were given to me. They appreciate the service. I also did speak with Crystal of WFCSS to find out if there was any grants available that could be given to the residents of the county, and she said she did get a grant that she feels will be expiring before, March or April of 2024. It was for $1,000, and they were able to provide the subsidization to some of the residents within the area. But there's specific parameters around that. It only can be for medical appointments only, and it's to designated areas. So the people that would require the subsidization can only have medical appointments in Strathmore, Calgary, or in Drumheller. Those are the 3 locations. And they have to first contact WFCSS to see if there's a volunteer driver available for them. If not, then they are directed to the handy bus to get that access of transport. So the handy bus service is integral in assisting and in maintaining the health and welfare of our residents, but it also assists our residents' families as well, as they don't have to take off time from their work, or they might not live within the area, and it makes it not possible to come and give them the rides to where they need to go as regular as they need. So the families are comforted to know that their loved ones are safely transported to and from their appointments, no matter where they live, by experienced, knowledgeable, and friendly drivers. So I have worked within the healthcare system here in Strathmore as well as in the county for many years in various capacities. So I started out in home care, and so I was able to travel throughout the county as well as in Strathmore, and now as my role as resident manager at the Wheatland Lodge. I connect with a lot of families, a lot of seniors within this area, and I have gone on handy bus trips as a companion when needed with specific residents. In the county, I was out at Gleason, I was out at Standard area, I rode the bus a few times. as well as in the lodge. And through these experiences, I've realized that not just anyone can be a handy bus driver. That's really so true, because these drivers, they get to know the residents by name. They get to know about their families. They get to know what mobility concerns or needs they require. They are trained by the Handy Bus Association for safety. They're able to make quick decisions when they're needed, and their primary focus is to ensure the safety and well-being of their passengers. And I vouch that they do that, because at the lodge, like I mentioned to our group last night, I see at least 3 handy buses pull into that parking lot every day. And they're always on time, they're early, they know these residents by names. And yeah, they just really take pride in their work. The handy bus also makes a difference for these residents in ensuring that they're not isolated in their homes, versus being able to participate fully in everyday community life, including shopping, attending church services, their medical appointments, family gatherings, or other social events that they're unable to get to if mobility or access is a concern. So it's not only medical appointments that we do offer to residents within the area. The pre-booking of these social visits, we call them, can be done as well. And it really enables them to take part in their family. What's going on? The handy bus is in business to provide a safe transportation to those who need it, but not to turn a profit. So this service needs the funding that is available to them through municipalities such as Wheatland County to be able to balance its annual operational budget. Thank you for your time. That's my part of this presentation. I'm the people person. I don't deal with the finances, so that's these guys. But if anyone has any questions for me, I'm more than happy to take them.
Any questions? We certainly appreciate your insight into the value of the service and the value of the people that provide that service. And I couldn't agree more. I've talked to residents and would echo all of your comments about the drivers and the relationships that are developed. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
So I know how you all love numbers. So I'm going to give you, I left all the numbers over there on purpose. I just have a couple here with me. With the information that Mark gave you or has been given to you from Mark, I deliberately put the amounts as a 6-month information, even though we have later information, because that's easy to double. And you can get an idea of what the year end might look like. I can give you some year end numbers or better estimate of year end. It looks like our operating deficit will come in around 240, 250,000. It will depend on the timing of the payroll at the end of the year. As at the end of October, we have 450 clients registered with us. That is close. If I said double, I wouldn't be all that far off from the depths of the pandemic. And the other, I think it's about a 40% increase from the depths of the pandemic. Just to give you a little idea of how we operate, we have a bookkeeper who provides us with information monthly. We get a monthly balance sheet and income statement. Payments over $3,000 are reviewed in real time. They come to me and one other member of the finance committee, just so we know what's going on a real-time basis. And if there are any other questions on finance, I can answer them now, or you can save them to the end of the meeting if after Mark's remarks, if they occur to you then.
Why don't we hear the rest of the presentation, and then if there's questions, we can go through those once the presentation is concluded. Thank you for the financial information.
In the information that I provided earlier, I don't know if we want to go through the complete letter for me to read it, but the intent for us being here today is to establish an MOU with the Wheatland County, similar to what we've had in place with the town of Strathmore for the last several years. We feel as a board and as an association that having a very stable funding base to continue operations for the long term is imperative. The MOU was a brainchild of several people within the town and our association, and in a nutshell, it substantially contributes to the operating costs of the Handy West Association. And if there is ever any leftover operating money out of there, that goes back to the municipality every year. With the numbers that we see on the increases, that's probably not likely. But when we first did this in 2021, ridership was significantly down. That's changed around. So I don't know how you'd like to proceed. Do we want to go through this MOU, or has everyone kind of read it and kind of understand the intent of it? Or is there any kind of questions that anyone has?
I don't think we need to go through it. Administration does provide our packages about a week or
Right.
like a few days before our meeting, so everybody has had an opportunity to review your submission.
Right.
If you don't have further to present that's not in there, it might be best to move to questions.
Sure.
And that can facilitate some of the discussion, as you were saying, in reference to understanding of the intent of the MOU and the request for the funding. So I will open the floor if anybody has any questions for the handy bus, for the representatives from the board. I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So my first question is if you have a reserve policy and or asset management sort of a framework, because you guys would have some obviously complex considerations in terms of maintaining your fleet and things like that.
And I'll kind of refer that to Brian because he's the better one with those kind of.
As I understand the question, do we have a reserve policy? No, we don't.
Okay.
We do have reserves, but we don't have a policy with respect to them, except that we look at them as a backstop for our capital requirements, and also a backstop for our operating requirements. And we've needed it this year. As I mentioned, our operating deficit is about 250,000. The town's provided around 183, with the usual contribution from Wheatland County. That will leave us about 50,000 short. We have the financial capacity to take care of that. That's a good thing. I wouldn't want to be long or to be making a presentation here with my hat in hand saying that we're such lousy operators that we are not able to account for variability from year to year and difficulties. We can take care of it. We think we're doing a good job. That's you can have your own opinion on that. But as far as a reserve policy, no. It's a very simple operation. As I think Mark may have mentioned that we have 8 drivers and a manager. There's not much complication to it. So having fancy names for different parts of our financial statement, no, we don't have anything like that.
Yeah, and I totally understand that and very grateful. I think you've done an exceptional job and just the quality of the information that's provided. I certainly appreciate that. My only rationale for asking about a reserve policy is when we're contemplating allocating tax dollars to an organization, it helps me rationalize that to our ratepayers, just if we know that there is some sort of policy framework. And in terms of, I have at times gotten questions from ratepayers about why we're providing or allocating tax dollars to like an organization if there are reserves. And it's an easy explanation for me if I say there's a reserve policy in place, those are either earmarked for, as you said, capital projects. And it is important to have an operating reserve as well. Certainly support that. It's just important that if there is some sort of limits or constraints around that or some direction that I can share with ratepayers in terms of accountability, like ultimately we are accountable for, every tax dollar that comes to the county. And so certainly not, and I also am incredibly grateful for the volunteers that make the Strathmore Handy Bus operate. And we haven't had council discussions on this, but I do want the organization to be sustainable. And so I appreciate the analysis that you're doing. And there may be some assistance that we could provide as well with, just a very simple reserve policy. It's just something it's easy for me to say, it exists, here's the framework, but I don't want it to be arduous for your organization either.
Okay. I can add two things to that. One is, if you want us to have a reserve policy, we'll make one. And the second thing is, we have a bit of a sword hanging over us. Our current space where we park the vehicles is owned by the town of Strathmore, at least the land's owned by the town of Strathmore. We own the building, and there's an arrangement to deal with that. But as you probably know, the town of Strathmore has moved, and they are looking at taking the garage portion and moving somewhere else. And when that happens, we could be out of a place. So keeping funds in hand for that potential. We'll either have to buy something or our operating costs will go up from rent. That's kind of a sword hanging over us at the moment.
Thank you so much. The other question I had is when we were reviewing or the ridership data that was provided in terms of the out of town data, do you have that broken down by municipality? So the core question is, would residents of the villages be included in out of town, or is that specifically Wheatland County, and do you have separate numbers?
It's broken into two entities, Town of Strathmore, Wheatland County. So no, the villages aren't included in that. It's all lumped into the county in one number, yeah.
Okay. So what might be helpful is, just because the villages are separate autonomous municipalities, it would be helpful for us if we had ridership by actual municipality that residents live in. So Wheatland County, there's sort of circles drawn around the villages where those are not Wheatland County. I know we kind of think of the region,
right?
But just in terms of transparency around ridership, that would be helpful, I think, for our council to have that data.
That's something that we haven't, it hasn't been accounted that way.
Okay.
But I can check with our manager to see if that information is available. Yeah.
Yeah, even if on a
basically,
go forward, if it hadn't been done to date, if it could be done, and only like if other people think that that would be helpful, it just helps us. We want to be fair and, but ultimately we are specifically responsible for Wheatland County services to Wheatland County ratepayers. We do want to find synergies for, the most efficient service delivery, and we do work closely with the town and the village, and our administration does provide a number of services to the villages, and we work together in those ways. It's just important for transparency and accountability if we could get those numbers delineated out. And then I appreciated that there was also some information, because we recognize that there are town residents or even potentially village residents who were historically Wheatland County ratepayers who have moved to a more urban setting just for proximity to
Correct.
services, or maybe
That
they're
was-
not driving, those things?
That was one of the questions that was posed to us several times. And as we did a little calculation as of December 31st of last year, to try and, because the numbers reflect on those stat sheets, basically the pickup addresses, right? So if a person is picked up at the lodge for say, or Sagewood, that would be considered a Strathmore trip, even though that person may or may not have come from somewhere in the county and may still live or farm in the county. So we did a, of the clients, and I think we had that breakdown on that bottom of that sheet. 20%. Basically 20% of the client base had some ties back to being a current or former resident of the County of Wheatland, which would include the villages, because we never broke that up that way.
Any other questions or discussion points? Anything on the MOU? So in terms of process, we're in a committee of council right now, so we won't make any decisions. But the committee could refer something back to council for a decision. Does anybody have any further questions?
Just a quick question on the charges to the client. How much is that going up per year?
Our current rate sheet was established in 2019, has not changed. That is one of the things the new board is going to be looking at very early in the new year.
Because, yeah,
It's
that's
in relationship to a very quick survey I did of kind of similar services which are difficult to kind of establish in this area. We are on probably average or a little below everybody else, which needs to be corrected. And we're conscious of everything else in the world is going up too. Yeah.
Any other questions for the board?
I'd like to move that we accept this as information and bring this back to a council meeting, and plus containing all the information that was brought to our presentation.
So Councillor Bigger has moved to accept for information and to refer back to our full council for consideration. Any questions or discussion? I'll call the question. We'll use the,
Oh, yes.
because it's there. So motion is carried. So we will make sure that all of the information that you have provided is included in an upcoming council agenda. And then we'll reach out if there's any other information or questions that arise out of that. We can let you know when that's coming to council as well.
Thank everyone for having us here today. We'll continue to provide everyone with a good service. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And please know that your work please pass along our thanks to all of the volunteers that contribute to the Handy Bus. We know that this is a critical service for vulnerable people in our community, and we genuinely appreciate the work that you're doing. So thank you. That concludes our agenda for the Public Presentation Committee. So we will adjourn that meeting. Thank you, everybody.